Prata smarami hridi samsfuradaatmatattvam Satchit sukham paramaham sagatim turiyam Yat swapna jagarasa shuptim avaiti nityam Tad brahma nishkalamaham nacha bhuta sangaha Tapo bhikshina papana Shantanam vitaragina Mumukshunam apekshoyam Atma bodho vidhiyate Bodhonya sadhanebhyo hi Sakshan mokshaika sadhanam Pakasya vahni vajnanam Vina moksho na siddhyati. Hari Om. Welcome back to Gems of Bhagavad Gita. We will continue with our discussion on the 20 qualities of Agyani. 13वें अध्याय के 8 से 12वें श्लोक का हम चर्चा करेंगे. Chapter 13 verses 8 to 12 talk about the 20 qualities of Agyani, which we started discussing yesterday. And the very first quality, just like in the case of a bhakta, just like in the qualities of a bhakta, the 35 qualities of a bhakta, the first quality itself was so hard-hitting. And it drove home the essence of bhakti. The essence of bhakti is identification. The essence of bhakti is feeling that sense of oneness with one and all. To be able to scan through the material equipments and find the Godhead. Acknowledge the Godhead seated in each and every being. Recognize that everybody is just a God playing the fool. Everybody is the Atman enveloped by these gunas, enveloped by this body, mind, and intellect. And recognizing that the spirit in me is the same as the spirit in you. The self in me is the same as the self in you. That spirit is bhakti. How can you hate? How can you hate yourself? You don't hate any part of your body. You don't hate your toes. You don't hate your fingers. You don't hate your ears. They're all you. They're all part of you. You can't hate what is you. So finding that sense of acknowledgement, finding that sense of identification in one and all, being able to empathize, being able to fit into another's shoes. These are all different ways of understanding the same thing, the essential aspect of bhakti. We're all children of God. We're all from the same family. So hating no being, understanding everybody is exactly helplessly expressing their own vasanas. Similarly, in the case of the Jnani, we are seeing the first quality itself is an extremely hard-hitting quality. Amanitvam. Amanitvam. Man means a sense of arrogance. Amanitvam. Humility. That feeling, humility is that feeling within you that perhaps I don't know it all. Humility is that feeling within you that whatever I know, I have been standing on the shoulders of great people. I have been standing on the shoulders of great people. Meaning what? Whatever I know is a result of the work of so many others before me. That feeling. See, when you become arrogant about anything you do, about anything you achieve, about anything you know, and this usually happens when someone first tastes success, first tastes knowledge, first tastes clarity, first taste a sense of understanding, you become arrogant about it. And what is that an indication of? It is an indication कि आप conscious नहीं हो. You are not conscious of what all has contributed to your knowledge, what all has contributed to your understanding, what all has contributed to your success. The knowledge you have gained it in a particular language. Who taught you that language? Who taught you throughout school? Who contributed to your learning? Who contributed to your well-being? Who has brought you all the way up here? How many teachers have made sure that you learn step by step? Suppose I study Vedanta, a little bit of Vedanta, 2% of Vedanta I gain, and suddenly I start feeling, oh, I know more than others. Suddenly I start feeling I am the greatest Vedanta teacher. This is not my knowledge. This knowledge is not mine. Thousands of saints and sages have developed this knowledge, have experienced this knowledge, have selflessly given out this knowledge. I have simply understood 2% of it. I'm not saying me personally, anybody. Anybody. So, feeling a sense of arrogance is only indicative of your limited knowledge. That's it. And your lack of awareness of everything else that is contributed. In the famous Kenopanishad, there is a verse, Yadi manyase suvedeti nona vedeti vedacha. Yonas tad veda tad veda nona vedeti vedacha. If you think you know it, you don't know it. If you think you don't know it, then you know it. अगर आप में ये भाव आ जाए कि मैं सब जानता हूं, मुझे I understand. Please मुझे लेक्चर मत दो. I understand. Exactly. If that's a feeling in you, it means you haven't understood. It means you do not really know. You maybe understand superficially. You maybe understand superficially, but that knowledge hasn't seeped into you. And what is worse, you're not willing to gain more knowledge. You're not willing to learn further. You think whatever you know is perfect. That's it. You want to end your life, turn arrogant. You want to end your life, turn arrogant. You stop living, you stop learning, you stop moving ahead. You will remain in your own bubble. But a jnani is one, first of all, who acknowledges that his knowledge is a drop in the ocean of ignorance. His knowledge is one in the drop of the ocean of ignorance. There's so much more to know. There's so much more to learn. See, the purpose of jnanam, the purpose of jnan marg is to make you surrender. I'm saying something very, I won't say controversial, but the purpose of this journey, the purpose of jnan marg is to make you realize that you cannot understand. आप समझ नहीं पाओगे. This knowledge, Bhagwan tak pahunchna, spiritual enlightenment पाना, it's not an intellectual pursuit. That understanding itself is what you have to reach. So it's a paradox. आप इंटेलेक्ट के द्वारा ये समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हो कि आप समझ नहीं सकते. एंड जब वो ह्यूमिलिटी आप में आ जाए, अब ऐसे मत कहो कि नाउ पीपल विल थिंक, अच्छा हम तो समझ ही नहीं सकते तो हम यहाँ क्या कर रहे हैं. That's not the point. Don't turn pessimistic. Don't turn pessimistic. To understand that no amount of intellectual understanding is going to make you reach God. You cannot directly contact God with your intellect. It's not something you can understand. It's not a concept you can understand. So to understand the limitation of your own knowledge, to understand that you are a drop in the ocean of ignorance, to acknowledge everything else, everybody else that has contributed to your knowledge. Even if you are an innovator, even if you have thought something for the first time, assume you are the greatest of people who has thought something, who has कुछ नया आविष्कार किया है आपने. The great Ramanujan, आपने सुना होगा, the great mathematician Ramanujan, South India के थे, and we don't know enough about him. He passed away at a young age. उनके बारे में मूवी बनी थी पिछले साल, उतनी खास मूवी नहीं थी, but जिनको उनके जीवन के बारे में जानने की इच्छा हो, you should definitely watch the movie and read about him. One of the greatest mathematicians of all time. He hasn't been given his due. He hasn't been given his due. And उन्होंने कई आविष्कार किए थे, कई innovations किए थे mathematics के field में. The subtlest of innovations. And that great man, he said, everything I have conceived has been given to me by the Devi. The Devi appears in my mind and gives it to me. She reveals it to me. It's a revelation. It's a revelation. Point being that your capacity to think itself, your intellect itself is a gift. Bhagwan ki देन है. It's a gift. So what are you turning arrogant about? मैंने ये सोचा है, मैंने ये जाना है, मैंने ये समझा है. किसके द्वारा समझा है? अपने बुद्धि के द्वारा समझा है. And बुद्धि क्या है? बुद्धि प्रकृति ने आपको दिया है, भगवान ने आपको दिया है. ये बुद्धि आपकी नहीं है. आपने बुद्धि को खरीदा है. Did you buy it? Did you pay for your buddhi? No. It was gifted to you. It's a gift. So to turn arrogant, about something that is not yours, you don't own it. You're simply a trustee of it. You're simply gifted it to make use of it, good use of it. To turn arrogant about that is the highest stupidity. Arrogant about that is highest stupidity. So these are, I'm trying to explain from different perspectives why a Jnani will have humility. That's all. I'm just trying to explain from different perspectives why a Jnani will have humility. I'm not saying have false humility. False humility is a kind of pretentiousness. The next quality, हमने जो चर्चा की थी, unpretentious. Someone who is unpretentious. A Jnani is unpretentious. Adambitvam, dambhrahit. Someone who doesn't have pretentiousness. See it in front of you. Unpretentiousness. So false humility. लोग जो दिखाना चाहते हैं, अच्छा मुझे तो कुछ नहीं आता. I'm sorry. No. They try to appear lesser than what they are. They try to appear lesser than what they are. That's not humility. That you're just trying to show the world how humble you are, how modest you are. That's not humility. Humility has nothing to do with your outward show that you don't know. It has to do with your inner awareness that perhaps I don't know it all. People can call you arrogant. It doesn't matter. This is not about what people say. It's not about what the world thinks. People can call you arrogant. In fact, the more confident a person you are, the more drid nishchay you are, the more you have a firm goal, people will call you arrogant. If you don't heed to the nonsense of others, the first thing they'll attack you by saying that you are arrogant. That is not what we're talking about. Humility or arrogance is not a stamp the world gives you. The world can call you arrogant. Doesn't matter. What makes you humble or arrogant is your inner attitude. Do I know it all? If you feel like you know it all, if you feel like you are the greatest, you are arrogant. If you feel like you don't know it all, if you feel like whatever you know, you are grateful for, and you're using what you know to discover further. If you acknowledge that there is still a lot to learn, all these feelings are within you, then you're truly humble. Regardless of what the world says, regardless of what the world thinks, there are a lot of nonsensical people in the world who have all the time only to criticize you. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that inner sense that inner awareness that makes you humble. The second quality, unpretentiousness. We are usually pretentious because we have a weakness. Pretentiousness comes from a weakness, and a grave weakness. Almost every human being is a victim of this. A grave weakness to appear greater than what we are, to appear better than what we are, to appear a certain way in the eyes of other people. That weakness for the opinion of others, that weakness for the opinion of others is what makes us pretentious. We pretend, we try to appear different than what we are. We feel coy. We don't want to reveal what we truly are. We don't want to reveal our true thoughts. We try to modify our appearance. हम वही दिखाना चाहते हैं हम वही दिखाते जो हम दिखाना चाहते हैं. सॉरी, हम वही दिखाते जो हम दिखाना चाहते हैं. And that pretentiousness is a cause of n number of problems. N number of problems, n number of agitations, n number of worries, so much anger. You'll spend your entire life trying to put up an image. People are so worried. People are so bothered about their image. People end up going mad. So you must acknowledge that all of this is arising out of a weakness in you, to appear different from what you are in the eyes of people. It's arising from a weakness to get validation from others. It's a weakness of caring about the opinions of others. I'm not saying that you should not bother about others' thoughts. I'm not saying you shouldn't try to take advice from others. That's a totally different thing. Taking advice from others and caring about the passing opinion of others, heaven and earth difference. Heaven and hell difference. You can have a few people whom you confide in, whose opinion, whose well thought out opinion, who have the best interest for you in mind, and take their counsel. That's completely different, as opposed to caring for everything that some era gera nathu thera thinks about you. They're not even your well-wisher. Half the day, they are only jealous of who you are. Why bother? A jnani is unpretentious. Why? He's completely comfortable in issues. He is not an extrovert thinking about the opinions of others. He has turned introvert. He has gotten over that weakness for what others have to say about him. Harmlessness, ahimsa. One after the other, great qualities. Harmlessness, ahimsa bhav. Again, a highly misunderstood quality. Ahimsa doesn't mean non-violence. Please clarify this for yourself today. Ahimsa doesn't mean non-violence. Ahimsa means non-injury. An awareness, a consciousness to not cause injury to others, not unnecessarily hurt others, to do things that are beneficial for others. That is ahimsa. And even if you're doing something beneficial, make it as less painful as possible, because pain is not necessary. There's no need for you to cause pain to others. That sense of kindness, that tender awareness in you is ahimsa. More than physical harm, it is emotional or intellectual harm we cause others. When we are attached to people and things, we emotionally blackmail them. That is himsa. That is violence, emotional violence. We manipulate them. That is violence. Intellectually, we say mean things, we say nasty things, we say things we shouldn't say, we unnecessarily criticize them, we try to poke them. That's violence. So violence is not just you taking a sword and killing someone. Violence is not just physical violence. In fact, far greater than physical violence. If you really want to make someone suffer, if you really want to torture someone, you'll see in some of these, half of these OTT serials, half of these series and movies we watch, they all surround some sort of feeling of revenge and feeling of violence. Half the shows that get out. And what is the main driving factor in half of these series? It's someone trying to take revenge from the other person. And half the times what happens, they don't physically kill them, they emotionally and mentally torture them. So mental and intellectual violence is actually greater than physical violence. Mental and intellectual violence is far greater than physical violence. So ahimsa bhav is an awareness at all levels, physical, emotional, intellectual, at all levels, not to hurt the other person. Not to hurt the other. That awareness by which you function, by which you live, conscious of your impact on others. Yes, sometimes to do good for the others, you may have to tell them a bitter truth. You may need to show them what they don't want to see. You may have to break some news to them which is hurtful to them. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a tender feeling of not wanting to consciously hurt someone. It requires a lot of unselfishness to be harmless, to be truly ahimsic. And it's a beautiful quality. It's a sign of evolution in a human being. It's a sign of evolution in a human being. Every other creature is helplessly dependent on the cycle of nature. Every other creature is helplessly dependent on the cycle of nature. A tiger cannot live without killing. A tiger cannot live without killing. It's helpless. You can't criticize tiger. It has to harm in order to feed itself. A human being alone can make that choice. Should I or should I not harm? A human being alone can choose to live deliberately, can choose to consciously change its needs. Consciously change its needs. A human being is not helpless at the hands of nature. So if you consciously try to make some changes in your life so that you're not harming others, you're not harming other things, materially, physically, emotionally, intellectually, at all levels, then that's a sign of growth in you. That's a sign of evolution in you. So naturally, Agyani is one who is harmless, who has no sense of hinsa, who has no sense of revenge, no sense of anger and retribution. He always thinks for the well-being of others. He always thinks for the well-being of others. Sometimes you may have to be cruel only to be kind. So don't go by the superficial hurt. Sometimes you may have to temporarily hurt someone only to give them more freedom in the long run. Sometimes you may have to, any learning, any growth is difficult, it's hurtful. That's not the hurt we're talking about, because that hurt leads to much greater freedom. That hurt leads to liberation. So sometimes you may have to be a little cruel, in Shakespeare's words. Sometimes you have to be cruel only to be kind. But even in that cruelty, you'll do it with gentleness. You'll do it with that reassurance. The person will have the reassurance that they can confide in you. Harmlessness, kshama bhav, forgiveness. For those of you, yesterday I asked the question, what are the common qualities between a jnani and a bhakta? And many of you correctly said, yes, forgiveness. So we already see forgiveness is in the first verse itself. The first verse of the qualities of a bhakta, the first verse in the qualities of a jnani. Common quality. that sense of forgiveness. And as we discussed last time, forgiveness is a sign of growth. Forgiveness is a sign of growth. That forgiveness arises when you stop thinking of yourself as a victim. That feeling of forgiveness arises when you stop thinking of yourself as a victim. You're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Everybody is helplessly expressing their nature. And yes, they will pay for their nature. There are laws of the land. There are societal laws with the judiciary. There are spiritual laws. Don't worry, there are spiritual laws. So you may have to take actions against someone if they've crossed a certain line. And even the nature is going to take action against that person. Don't worry. But within you, what is the feeling? Oh, I am a victim. Oh, how could this be done to me? People hold on to that sense of resentment for years and years and years. People hold on to anger against family members for years for what I've said 30 years ago. Aage badho. Aage badho. They said it in their childishness. They said it in their impulsiveness. They said it because even if they said it purposely, that they are a victim of their negativity. They are a victim of their selfishness. Aage badho. When only when you move ahead in life, you're open to the possibility that people change. An English thinker the George Bernard Shaw. He said, the smartest person I have met in my life is a tailor. The smartest person I have met in my life is a tailor. Why? Because he always takes fresh measurements. Every time I meet him, he's taking fresh measurements. Last time my shoulders were 19 inches. Maybe now it's 20 inches. He takes fresh measurements. Change is possible. Change is possible. Parivartan possible hai. Similarly, in a human being, change is possible. Something they did back in the day, they did it immaturely. They did it with a certain. That time they were helplessly being who they are. Then they may have changed. It's possible they can change. Everybody can change. Particularly if they put in the effort, of course they can change. So being open to that idea, all of these thoughts will help you absorb this quality of forgiveness. The next quality, arjavam. Uprightness. Shanti arjavam. Again, a wonderful quality of a bhakta, of a jnani. Straightforwardness, uprightness. Doesn't beat around the bush. Doesn't try to mince his words. Someone who is exactly straightforward about what he feels, what he thinks. Doesn't try to sugarcoat things. Doesn't try to give a wrong impression. Yes, sometimes speaking the blunt truth is difficult. Sometimes speaking the blunt truth is difficult. Sometimes saying exactly what you need to say is difficult. But being true to your conscience, it requires you being true to your conscience, saying exactly what you feel, revealing exactly what you believe, standing up for exactly what you think should be stood up for. You may be wrong. It's okay. It's okay. Today you may believe something. Today you may stand for something, and tomorrow you may change your belief. It's totally fine. But if you don't stand up for what you believe today, how will you ever change? How will you ever change? You'll only change through your experience, your feedback from the world. But if you hide what you truly believe, you'll always remain in that thought. You're never showing it to the world. So that being true to your conscience and being straightforward, being upright, being honest, to thine own self be true. Again, the famous words of Shakespeare. Today is Shakespeare Day. Earlier we said you have to be cruel only to be kind. Again, beautiful quote from Shakespeare. Now this is another beautiful quote. To thine own self be true, and it must follow as night does day. Then thou canst not be false to any man. I repeat, to thine own self be true. Be true to yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Be honest, exactly what you think, exactly what you feel, exactly what you believe. Be honest with your feelings. If there are negative feelings in you, acknowledge it. If there are weaknesses in you, acknowledge it. Let others also know about it. What's the harm? Of course, not everyone. You don't have to go and publicize it, but don't hide yourself from others, especially those who are close to you. They know exactly what you are. They know exactly what you are, whether you reveal it to them or not. So be upright. Be honest. Be a student of life. Only when you're upright and honest and straightforward can you be a student of life. Can you learn from life? Can you move forward? And this is the whole path. This is the whole path of self-correction. The spiritual path is nothing but a path of self-correction, where you are constantly aware and willing to grow, to improve, to change. So how can you change if you're not showing what you truly are? If you're not even honest with yourself. So to thine own self be true. It's not about what others think of you. It's not about what others believe of you. To thine own self be true. Live an upright life. And it must follow as night does day. It must happen constantly. If just as night comes constantly after day, there's no day where night doesn't come. Every day ends with a night. It must follow as night does day. You must follow this practice of being true to yourself, being honest, being straightforward, as night follows day. Then thou canst not be false to any man. If you're true to yourself, you'll be true to everyone. If you're true to yourself, then you'll be true to everyone. So that conviction is arjavam, beautiful quality. The qualities to live by. Qualities to live by. All signs of a mature human being. Acharya upasana. Service to the preceptor. The guru is saying, service to the preceptor. A very important quality of Agyani. Agyani is a student. Who is Agyani? Agyani is a student of life. A student of life only can become a teacher of life. Agyani is a student of life, and any good student has three beautiful qualities. Prashnena bhav. First of all, pranipatena, shraddha bhav. That feeling of devotion, that feeling of surrender, that acknowledgement that you know more than me. Only when you feel that someone knows something you don't know, will you be willing to learn from them. If you feel you know more than them, you can't learn from them. Only if you acknowledge that maybe they know something I don't know, you bow to them. That's pranipatena. That's the attitude with which you come to a teacher. Prashnena, having come, having bowed, having surrendered, it's not that you simply believe what they say blindly. You question it. You analyze. You think it should fit your own reason. Doesn't mean you have to dismiss it. Doesn't mean you have to question. Doesn't mean you have to show something down. No. Questioning in the spirit of learning, truly trying to discover, trying to understand what the other person is saying, making that fit your reason. And if something doesn't fit your reason, clarifying. So when we say prashnena, we don't say questioning with the spirit of challenging. We say questioning with the spirit of clarifying. Big difference. A lot of people question only to raise fingers. Half-baked questions. They think they are being critical. That's not the spirit. The spirit of clarification is what is important. The spirit of inquiry is what is important, not the spirit of challenging. So, pranipatena, prashnena, and the third quality of a student is sevayaha. That's seva bhav. When will you have the seva bhav? When will you have the seva bhav? Why does a jnani have that seva bhav towards a preceptor? When do you feel helpless to give? When do you feel completely compelled to help another person? When do you feel compelled? When you realize, oh my God, they have done so much for me. When you realize, oh my God, you have received so much from them, you feel compelled. Please, can I help you? Please, can I do something for you? I have to return the favor. Huh? Someone brings beautiful food to your house in a container. What happens? You say, I'm not going to give this container empty-handed to you. I feel compelled to fill it with something special from my own house. You send dahi vadas to someone's house because that is the specialty of your house, and they feel compelled. I cannot leave it empty. I'm going to give you brownies from my house. Every day this only happens. And who eats the dahi vada and who eats the brownies? So the idea of serving, the idea of contributing, the idea of giving back comes when you acknowledge what you have received. When you feel that attitude of gratitude, that helplessness. And particularly when you receive so much, you feel helpless. Why? Because you know you'll never be able to give back. No matter what you give, you'll not be able to return. That's the best form of gratitude you can feel. The best form of gratitude you can feel is that helpless realization. Oh my God, I have received so much. I'll never be able to give back. I will always be in debt. I will always be in debt. And that will make you the most unselfish person. That feeling will make you the most unselfish person. That feeling will want to make you serve and sacrifice for the benefit of one and all. That will make you a true unselfish person, functioning for loka sangraha, functioning for the spirit of one and all, benefit of one and all. And with respect to a guru, you acknowledge, you realize how much they are giving you. You recognize that a guru is giving you something invaluable. Balihari guru aapne jin gobind diyo milaye. Oh Guru, you have given me this ultimate. I can never pay back. And from that arises the attitude of service to the preceptor. From that arises the attitude that whatever I can do, let me do for them. Let me make sure they are well. Let me make sure that they are taken care of. Let me make sure they get the best of things. Let me make sure we can do the best for them. We can help them in their mission. Let me make sure that I can pass their message on. If there's one thing that should inspire you, because we should all be teachers. Right now, you are gaining a certain amount of knowledge. You should all have the spirit of passing it forward. Not because you know the knowledge, not with a sense of arrogance, but why? You're simply trying to pass on the message. This great knowledge that you are receiving, this amulya knowledge, this invaluable knowledge. And the first way to pass it on is to live it yourself. Pass it on doesn't mean start lecturing. The highest service to the preceptor, is furthering their mission. And how will you further the mission? Only when you become a lighthouse yourself. You have to gain this knowledge yourself. You have to apply it in your life yourself. Once you apply it, then you can become a giver. Then you can pass it forward. So the best service to the preceptor, the best acharya bhasan, the best service to the preceptor is inculcating this knowledge in your own life. Inculcating this knowledge in your own life, trying to implement these values, trying to improve yourself as a human being. That's all a teacher wants. If there is anything that a teacher wants, it is this. This is the greatest service you can do for your guru. This is the greatest service you can do for your teacher. Acharya Upasana. Purity. Only when you are acutely aware of all impurities. Only when you're aware of impurities will you try to remove them. If you don't see dirt, you won't do anything to remove it. You think it's perfectly fine. Go into your teenager's room, 15-year-old's room, and you'll see it all messy and bikhra hua saman yahan wahan rakha hua hai. And you'll tell your child, clean your room. And he'll say, I just cleaned it yesterday. I kept everything aside. Why? Because before all the things were fallen around, there were clothes from 5 days ago. Especially when you go to abroad, when you go to America, this is half the times people live like this, particularly children in colleges. Clothes all thrown around from 10 days ago, what they wore is in one corner. Things are just messily kept. For such a person, even a little bit of adjustment and they think they're clean, they're not even conscious of the dirt. How can someone clean if they're not conscious of dirt? So shaucham, cleanliness, purity, comes from an awareness of impurity, an awareness of dirt. Now, dirt is not just outside you, there is dirt within you also. There are negative feelings, there are selfish thoughts, there are arrogant ideas, this selfishness, this negativity, this arrogance, this swarth, trying to remove that, cleaning yourself of that. So cleanliness, shaucham, doesn't mean only outer shaucham. It also means inner shaucham. Making sure that you're free from all impurities, all egoism, all negativity, all pessimism, all selfishness. If there's anything negative arising in your mind, you'll clean it like you clean your house. You'll dismiss it. Jhadu maar do usko. Jhadu maar dijiye us khayal ko. That capacity to remove all impurities is called shaucham. Agyani maintains that shaucham at all levels. Steadfastness. Sthirta, stharyam. Steadfastness. Agyani is one who is steadfast on his journey, consistent and steady. Consistent and steady. He doesn't get distracted by other distractions that always will arise. There'll be n number of distractions. Any goal you take up, anything you try to follow, then you try to take up a fitness regimen. 3-4 days you'll do it. 4th day there'll be a distraction. There'll be a party you have to go to at night. And then you'll think, oh no, tomorrow I can't exercise. Or something will happen in the morning and you'll be distracted. Or today I don't want to exercise. Anything you take up, there will be n number of distractions. That capacity in you to not get distracted, to remain steady on the path, to remain consistent on the path, that is therium. The more conviction you have on a path, the more therium, the more steadfast you will be. The less conviction you have, the more easily you'll get distracted. Agyani is one full of conviction. So naturally, he has steadfastness. This is not a casual, occasional thing he's doing. And finally, he says in this verse, self-control. Atma vinigraha. His intellect is strong enough to deal with his mind, to guide and regulate his mind. His mind is not what rules his personality. His intellect rules his personality. So self-control is nothing but the intellect controlling the mind in making decisions, in making choices, in taking calls. It is not an impulsive mind, but a deliberate intellect that guides his life, that guides his choices. That is called self-control. Self-control is not self-denial. It is just making educated, deliberate choices. You may choose to do whatever you choose to do, but you're doing it after soch samajh ke, not impulsively. uh, Not impulsively. When you have a mature intellect, you do things in proportion, you do things in right measure. That is self-control. So these are all qualities of Jnani. We'll continue with this discussion. We'll continue with these qualities because they'll give us a deep insight into what are these qualities of a truly evolved human being. And they'll help us immensely. They'll also inspire us. We'll pick up some of these qualities and we'll go leaps and bounds on the spiritual journey. So, with that thought, we'll conclude today's class and we will meet once again tomorrow and continue our discussion on the 20 qualities. Hari Om Tat Sat. Have a good day. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.